Hello, everybody. My name is Drew Dosek, and welcome to Trading the Close. So today was a volatile day in the stock market intraday. We had prices lift higher off of weaker than expected inflation data, and that also does potentially put pressure on JP and the Federal Reserve to go ahead and start cutting interest rates. But then at 1:30, we had an announcement by the United States to have non-essential personnel evacuated out of Kuwait and Bahrain. And usually, whenever that happens, military conflict starts boiling up. The stock market started selling, oil spiked, the VIX started pushing up a little bit higher too. So there could be tensions on the horizon, but eventually, maybe with Iran and with Israel, maybe a combination with the United States too. We're going to see how that is displayed on the charts today. So let's just jump into the market summary page here. As you see here, the Dow Jones is basically flat, now up 0.08%. NASDAQ down 0.5%. S&P 500 down 0.23%. U.S. oil, as I mentioned, did spike up, now up 4.91%. Gold started pushing higher too on this news, now up 0.73%. And Bitcoin started tumbling. Again, guys, this is further proof Bitcoin is a risk asset, at least for the time being. All right, so into the S&P 500 heat map, you see the mega players here all turning down on the day. Microsoft still hanging in there, and Netflix. Netflix seems to be an attraction of investors whenever there's pressure under these other mega cap positions. But we see Amazon also down, Walmart down, Costco down, AVGO, one shining star in the mega caps. But for the most part, we have a lot of red on the screen displayed. Now let's get into the S&P 500 on the SPX to see what's being displayed today. Now, yesterday we notated that we did close above this declining trend line. And I also hypothesized, I said, guys, are we going to have a very similar bull trap scenario right on top of this trend line, much like that occurred back here in February before the big sell? Right now, it's starting to shape up that way. Stay posted for the coming days, especially if any further conflict develops in the next day or two, maybe even overnight tonight. But let's jump into the 10-minute chart and see where price action did bottom out. So I did mention that announcement was made this afternoon at 1:30. We could see here the charts illustrated and foreshadowed to us, albeit a small topping tail. There was a topping tail registered at 1050 this morning. Since then, price never came back up to this area. So we sold off, bounced up into 130. Then that announcement came and price sold off straight down into that declining trend line that was used to isolate this bull trap right here. So far, that area is being respected. We'll see if that leads into tomorrow with a gap down underneath it, or if we continue to consolidate right on top of that trend line. But seriously, watching this area like a hawk to see what the future price movement is going to be for the S&P 500. If we break that trend line, we're coming down here to support at 58.21. Into the Qs. The Qs here were marching higher, and then that news broke, and then we started selling off there as well. Did not reach the major resistance of double top here at 540.81. We'll see if that happens in the next couple trading days, as tech still is hot and getting a lot of inflow of capital. Into SMH. SMH, also a similar situation as the Qs. What a wonderful move in diagonal incline up. But these sort of moves usually result in a sell-off and correction, at very least consolidation. This is just overdone in the near term. You can see here we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 candles basically straight up from this pivot low created on May 25th. If we do have price selling enter the SMH, we will be having support down here, 246.54. Next up, IWM. IWM started curling over also today, but that is to be expected, folks. We did break out of this declining trend line. Now we need to have price come back down and catch support for a continued bounce and move higher. This is a significant breakout on the IWM. And then also, if you look across back in history on the chart, you can see right where price action is. We were a little higher today and yesterday. That's coming right into this pivot. Understanding the flow of charts, how price action responds to previous areas on the chart is critical to understanding future price flow. As we see now, that is resistance, and now we're starting to come back down. First support there, as I said, 209.53 that I am watching. Into Bitcoin. Bitcoin if you didn't know anything about today's news, you would just say, hey, it's just kind of consolidating right here. And that is exactly what I'm going to derive, at least for now. For now, price action is consolidating, holding up here a very nice immature bull flag pattern. So far, looking good for Bitcoin. First support area is this 50% area of the parallel, right around 107,500. And then immediate resistance is going to be this trend line at 112. I'll flip into the 10-minute chart there too to illustrate Bitcoin's risk on scenario. So here again, 1:30 in the afternoon. Look at the selling pressure that hit the markets and a bear flag on the 10-minute chart of Bitcoin there. So we could be seeing further downside later tonight in Bitcoin. Next up, we've got gold. Gold, as you see here, still trading on top of this declining parallel channel. Now, with this news, gold did peak up today. Now, we've never confirmed above this parallel either, so that still leaves it vulnerable for a fall back down. But if we do start pushing higher, this inverse head and shoulders pattern will then start playing out and push us up near that $3,600 level on gold. Into silver. Silver also did start curling over, and this is also to be anticipated. We've had a monumental move up on this commodity, and we likely will start curling over, maybe even consolidate right here at very best, right at the $36 level. Otherwise, $34.86 is going to be some major support for silver and would likely be a buying opportunity for continued bounce up higher. Into U.S. oil. Guys, we've been calling this for weeks now. And even when we did confirm right here, I was waiting for a potential pullback to buy. But should you have bought right here at this confirmation, you are nicely in the money on U.S. oil with it pushing higher. Next stop measured move 68.69, followed by this inclining trend line right at $70.57. Into nat gas. Nat gas, as you see here, curling over the last 7 trading days. Right here made a pivot, and then all these candles now curling back over, touching the bottom end of this big green candle. So right now, that's the most immediate area of support, right at $3.52. Next area of support down here at $3.38 for nat gas. The 10-year yield did retreat today, and it did so because the inflation data came out weaker than anticipated. So all is looking good on the 10-year chart. We should anticipate for any other positive developments with inflation news, the 10-year yield to retreat back down. Major support's going to be down here at the bottom end of this parallel channel, roughly at 4.11%. But again, still keeping a close eye on the top end of this trend line, because this trend line right here, guys, it really determines which way the markets will likely go and which pressure and how much pressure is implied on the markets, especially if we start pushing up higher. Money's going to be tougher to achieve and get. Now into the VIX, VIX. We don't normally cover this, but I wanted to at least highlight the fact of the volatility that is potentially spiking. Now look, we had a big sell-off on the VIX right near the close, just 10 minutes prior to the close. But we look at it from 130, we were down at $16.22, and then we pierced $18. We got all the way up here, 11% move on the VIX in just under 2 hours of trading. This is an incredible move on the VIX. If military conflict does push into tomorrow, we will likely see the VIX spike up a little bit more, but it all makes sense. We've been following the S&P 500. We've been following the Qs and the SMH. We have been pushing up to levels and extended far enough to where we should start seeing some volatility and pulling back. And then addition, with all the cycle work that I do, guys, we have a service called Trader Alerts Explorer. Every Monday, I put out a video about cycles. I've been highlighting our current upcoming cycle date. We had a full moon last night. Then on June 15th, we have a major cycle date that will have positive and negative influence on the market, much like a big tug and pull interaction going on. And we see all these conflicts now spreading all throughout the United States, and then potentially even Iran, Israel, and the United States. So conflicts are boiling up with this tension. It's all in the cycles and can be predicted or at least isolated in future dates. All right, into SBUX, one of the bigger winners here on the S&P 500 today. Even with all the pressure pulling prices down on most stocks, SBUX was one of those shining stocks, pushing up 4.33% to close the day. But notice where price action stopped at the top today. We'll zoom into the 10-minute channel right here, or 10-minute chart, right here at the 50% area of this parallel channel. Guys, these parallels give you so much information to go on where price can likely stop, stall out, and reverse back down for a potential buy-in opportunity for a continued move higher. As we see here, at least immediately right now, this area right at the 50% area, the parallel, which is a high of $95.91 up to $96.48, is the immediate resistance for SBUX. Should we have a pullback down anywhere on this trend line? It's currently a dynamic trend line, so price changes. It's going to be roughly around $90 when price could come back down and hit that area. And you see I just strung the low pivot here from April 30th and then connected it over to the next pivot low on June 2nd to create that trend line if you want to do that on your own charts. Into AVGO. AVGO was the biggest winner in the mega cap space today. As you see here, it's pushing back up. Now, we did fall down back into this parallel channel, never confirmed down here. So a push back up does make sense. But notice here with this trend line, right? We've had this trend line essentially hold down price ever since over here in March. Now, we did poke above this on June 3rd, and we even did confirm, but then we gapped underneath that support. So now that tells me this trend, in essence, is now changing on AVGO. Price action will hit support or hit resistance right here at 257.68 should price continue moving higher with AVGO. But the likelihood of us coming back down, testing the top end of this parallel right at 248.65 is actually higher than us making new higher highs on AVGO. Into OKLO. OKLO is involved with fission power and really received a lot of inflow of capital today. As you can see, look at this massive move up on the chart, up now 29.48% to close the day. Post-market hours, though, look at this. Big, huge drop on this stock because you do have reflex reactions. When prices are extended, we do have an immediate pullback action. And it may take us several days, but whenever price gets extended, it usually will start coming back down just because too many people are FOMOing into these type of stocks, and folks that we're shorting are also covering their shorts when price action is moving higher on this chart. So watch this and learn from this movement, especially what's going on after hours right now. After this huge movement up, a lot of retail investors would be thinking, man, this is never going to stop. It's going to keep going to the moon. But you've got to be very wary about stocks that make big moves. Wait for pullbacks. There will always be pullbacks and another buy-in opportunity. Now for OKLO, an aggressive pullback area would be right here on this trend line, right at $57.60. If we get price action to come back down into there, we will likely receive a decent bounce off of that trend line for a further move up. Into QUBT. QUBT, as well as a couple other quantum computing stocks, really were on fire this morning, but then they started retreating. As you can see right here, we got up to a high of $20.90 and then finished the day down here at $18.97. So a decent pullback here on QBT. And part of the reason for quantum computing getting a big boost today was because the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, did mention that quantum space is really on the threshold of breaking through. And this is very different narrative than what was said 6 months ago when he and Mark Zuckerberg were kind of smashing quantum stocks, saying they're 5 to 6 years out. There's no reason to be investing in this sort of technology right now. They don't really have anything that's going to work. So why invest the money into it? But I think that was almost, a contrarian play there for companies like NVIDIA and Meta to start picking up these other quantum stocks on the low when that price started to drop after those two big heavyweights made that announcement. And so far now he's starting to say, yeah, we're on the threshold, price is moving back up, and they could be selling right into everybody else with this sort of announcement. All right, so what does that leave us with? So now, just like with OKLO, wait for a pullback. Major support right here, 1459. If you just want to get into QUBT, go ahead. Notice we're right here chopping along this resistance area. This is all this price action. So it will likely take a few goes to get through it effectively, or even consolidate in that area too, which likely could pull price down to that support range for a good long. Into QBTS, QBTS did not receive the big surge that QUBT did. But if we look back further on the chart, it kind of makes sense. It already had its surge. And that surge played out, got rejected, price came back down, didn't quite get all the way to my support level of 14.46. It got as low as $15.15 before bouncing back up. So this news almost was baked into this chart because of the massive move that already occurred. Now let's look at another quantum stock with Rigetti. We did not have that big of a move that was experienced on QBTS. So Rigetti did pop today. You can see it's up 11.39%. Nice move on that stock. However, it was much higher. We were up here in the $13.50 range before pulling back down underneath this inclining trend line that we see displayed on the chart. So far, what does this show us? This is a move down and sideways consolidation. That's a bear flag. So this is kind of giving mixed signals. Either we're going to break out above this trend line or we're going to come back down lower. And if we do come lower, $10.08 would be the area that I would start nibbling on a long play with Rigetti for a swing trade, for a potential move up to tag this resistance at 1420 as well as 1594. Now, I do think in the long run, companies like Rigetti, now whether or not this one will be a winner in the long run too is still to be found out. However, these companies, once they've had so much money inflow for research and development, the winners will really excel. And I'm talking about pushing way higher than this next major resistance up here at $20.37. So if you're a long-term investor, I don't blame you for trying to pick up some of these quantum stocks, the some that we went over today, and just hang on to them for the long run, because in about 5 years, these will be ripping. And it may even be sooner than that, as the CEO with NVIDIA mentioned today. All right, guys, so that wraps up Trading the Close. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. We've got a short message from our sponsors after this, but thank you again, and I'll be back here on the charts with you guys tomorrow. Y'all have a great day.
Hey guys, Lawton here with Verified Investing, here with another video for Blofin. Now, Blofin, for those of you who are unfamiliar, is the exclusive crypto exchange of Verified Investing. Not only is it great for going long and going short, you can have leverage up to 150x. Let's take a look at what Blofin has to offer. All right, guys, so let's take a look at futures. So I'm actually already in a trade on Blofin. As you can tell, I entered long and I have my take profit all the way up here and my stop loss right here on Bitcoin. I'm currently long Bitcoin, but let's see if we can find something else to potentially trade. So the great thing about Blofin is you can take a look at all of their pairs. I can trade anything I want from here, and I can see, okay, RVN USDT, this has been extremely volatile, at least on the hourly chart. But what type of pattern does this look like to me? I say this looks absolutely bullish. So let's go to market, how much money I want to use. Let's say, let's change this to USDT. Let's say I want to put maybe $100 and use a little more leverage, use 10x leverage and click buy long, confirm. And there I am. I am currently long on RVN USDT. Looks like a bull flag to me. I'm gonna add a stop loss down here to protect myself and for my take profit. Ooh, I'd love to see it move all the way up here. So there it is. I'm in a trade on Blofin, and hopefully this works out in my favor. I've set my levels so easily. I can adjust my stop loss and take profit levels with the drag of a button. And I can even see all of the order books right here. I can see how many shares or in this case, tokens are being traded at any given price. All right, so that's Blofin. Thank you again so much to Blofin for sponsoring us again. There are so many crypto exchanges out there, but we chose Blofin to partner with because we like their user friendliness, their reliability, and we trust their product. We use it ourselves too. Have a great day, guys. See you later.